so interesting because when Lynn and I picked up our sons, we had three boys, little boys at that point. We picked up our boys in Palo Alto at a friend's place. We brought them back to our home in Los Altos and put them to bed. And then after that, Lynn and I were very tired, and we were ready to get in bed when we broached the subject to each other. Lynn, I told Lynn what had happened, that I'd seen Joseph Smith and his brother Hiram Smith, and I was amazed. And Lynn then told me something that she saw, so I'll let her say what happened.
Well, we really were very, very, very tired. We'd gotten up at 2 o'clock in the morning and flew down to Los Angeles, and we were the very first session. And but Lee says people were asleep. They were. They'd been up all night. We had, and it was in these old planes, you know. But it was the first time I've been in an airplane, come to think of it. But and then as soon as the meeting was over, they took us in a bus and put us back on the plane, and we went home. And we didn't have a chance to speak to each other at all about this. And finally, like they said, we were ready to go to bed, and I thought, it was Saturday of all times, and I did not want to go to bed but without telling Lee what I saw, because I knew that I'd never be able to say that, to tell anybody if I waited another day. And I didn't want anyone to say anything to me that would disturb this memory. And so I said, Lee, and he was sitting there. I said, Lee, I need to tell you something before we go to bed. And he was sitting at his desk, and we were just ready to get ready for bed. He swung around, he looked at me, he says, what do you want to say? And I said, I want to tell you what I saw in the temple today. And he looked so relieved. Because I think we were both, we didn't want to talk about it when we left and so forth.
Well, the thing is, as I was sitting there during this session, Lynn was on my left side, and a brother, a counselor in one of our state, was on my right side. The counselor was sound asleep when this happened. Lynn, as I mentioned, looked straight ahead, and when I looked at her, she was seeing the same thing I did.
But it really made an impression on us. And Lee, following up on this situation about the transfiguration and writing it down, Lee wrote it down. But we agreed we were not going to talk to anybody about it, because this would be something. Well, eventually we began to hear rumors that other people had seen. In fact, we knew other people had had the same kind of experience. But it wasn't until for several years before I actually wrote it down. And I think my feelings about writing it down and so forth led me to be anxious to write the Transfiguration stories down as I was able to find them. Because I know that people do not always write things down the minute they happen. And as I say, Lee did, but he also wrote it in a way that, this is what we did this day, and 1, 2, 3, and so forth. Because we were both a little nervous about it. But since that time, because it happens at every temple dedication, someone or another, if they're full of the Spirit, will have this happen. But my understanding, perhaps George can enlighten us on this, is there is always someone on the other side that is assigned to accept the temple. And I know that Brigham Young was the one that was assigned to the Swiss temple. And various ones of the general authorities will be assigned to the various temples. And this is what I have, something very sacred to Lee and I, and we want to share it with our children and our grandchildren. And it happened when we were so young that the only other time I got in trouble with it was I happened to be teaching the gospel doctrine class, and Lee and I had agreed that under no circumstances we would ever talk about this. You know, we weren't going to talk about this. Well, somehow or other, the gospel doctrine class that day had to do with spiritual experiences. And all of a sudden, out of my mouth, I started telling this story, the first time I'd ever told it publicly. And I said, when I get through, I want Lee to confirm it or deny it, however he feels like, because he was there with me that day. And so I bore my testimony. And then I said, and Lee was in the audience of the class, sitting on the back row. And then I asked Lee if he would either confirm or deny, or if he would add to what I'd said. Well, Lee sat there for a long time, and I guess he was thinking it through, because we had told each other we wouldn't do that. And I thought he's going to jump up and he's going to say, she's out of her mind. You know, the time went by, and he still was thinking about it. And then finally he jumped up and he said, what she said is absolutely true, that this happened to us. We appreciate you giving Lee a chance to share this testimony with our children and grandchildren.
Thank you.
Oh, let me just add why we were there. We were representing the Palo Alto stake, and there were a lot of stakes other places in California that were there too. But we were invited. I was a 70. I was one of the presidents. In fact, I was the senior president of the 70s Quorum. And the reason I was is because I was also the stake mission president. And I'd been ordained at 70 by one of the first council of 70. And they wanted me to be in to attend the dedication at Los Angeles, which I did. And of course, you take your wife along too. But that's how come it was. They asked me to represent the Palo Alto stake, and there were several others. The stake president, David Haight, was there, and several other people.